Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This video I've tried to film a couple of times and the cat keeps intruding, as you can see. I'm sat here with my squash because if I don't sit there with it that close, my cat will drink it. I'm here today to talk to you about my heart condition and what was my heart condition. So I'm just going to sort of start off with what happened from the start of my life to now. So I can't remember not having a heart condition, but I have the first sort of piece of evidence from myself where I wrote a diary entry when I was around 5 or 6 years old, and I was explaining that I felt like my heart was beating really, really fast and that I might have asthma. Wasn't so much anything about my breathing, but that was all I really knew to compare it to. It definitely gave me a lot of anxiety, not knowing what was going on with my body, but I definitely knew that there was something wrong. When I explained that to my parents and my doctors, a lot of them just assumed it was down to adrenaline and anxiety, and they gave me a Powerade, an energy drink, which is obviously a huge mistake and I don't blame anyone for doing that, but it's just almost humorous now to look back and think that's what I was using to try and help my heart condition at that time. So for years it went on and I didn't actually know what was wrong with me. I just thought that it was sort of anxiety and adrenaline, which definitely in turn gave me anxiety because I assumed that I had anxiety from a very young age, but actually it was a misdiagnosis. So as I got older and older, my symptoms kept worsening, especially when I became sort of early teens. It was crazy how much worse the symptoms had become. It's kind of sad, but nobody really believed me at the time what was happening to me, and my parents would sort of threaten going to the hospital or calling an ambulance when really that was definitely what I needed, and I'd always be like, no, it's okay, I don't need an ambulance, I don't need to go to hospital, but I definitely should have taken that opportunity. So then when I was around 12 or 13 years old, I'd come back from swimming and walked up a big hill. I lived in the Cotswolds at the time, and my heart was beating like crazy all day. And it honestly used to be like, it would make my eyes black out and go kind of starry, and then my heart would be beating really fast. It was like honestly like running a marathon. And I threw myself on the floor of the kitchen in front of my mum and dad and demanded to be taken to hospital. At the time I felt like that was really overdramatic, like I was overreacting, but really it was the best thing that I ever did. So then the hospital trips from there pretty much ensued very frequently, and we were trying to find out what was wrong with me exactly. It got pretty scary at one point, not knowing what the actual issue was and knowing that there was something wrong with my heart. I can't actually tell you how long it was that it took me to be diagnosed from the moment that I knew there was something wrong. Quite a few years, but it was very impossible to diagnose. The only way we could actually diagnose it was to be catching my heart racing and having an episode as such whilst it was happening. So I had to have an ECG, which is when they sort of strap you up with all the wires. And to be able to diagnose me, we needed to catch it whilst it was beating. But for some reason, I don't know why, but it was almost like my heart was my worst enemy. Every time we would try and catch it, it would stop. It would go on for hours and hours and hours. As soon as I got hooked up onto those machines, it would always coincidentally stop. It was so frustrating because obviously you can't really move forward without a diagnosis and knowing what it is. But eventually I caught it. I had to go to a bigger hospital to catch it and lay there for quite a few hours whilst a lot of doctors were coming in being like, what the hell? And they just didn't know what was wrong with me. And that in itself was kind of a scary situation because no one, not even, 90% of doctors at that time knew what it was. Obviously, as a child, I thought I was dying. I've always known there's something wrong with me. And I thought, this is it. I'm dying. That's it. So it was a very crazy time. I definitely don't miss it. And then I got diagnosed. I think one man came and touched my neck, which is obviously where you can feel your pulse. And he was like, SVT. And I was like, what? And he was like, SVT. And he just knew straight away what it was. But obviously he couldn't formally diagnose me there and then. So there was a whole load of consultations with heart people and a lot of undressing as a young teenage girl in front of old men who would obviously need to do different scans and such all over me. So I did spend a lot of my young teenage years topless with no bra on. I always try to like keep my bra on and be like, I can keep it on. They'd be like, no, you have to take it off, which was so difficult for me at the time. Like, I used to struggle so much with my body image. Obviously, as a young teenage girl, you want that to be your body, and taking your clothes off at that age in front of your mum and dad and 5 other doctors and nurses acting like it's completely normal, but for you it just isn't. But finally I did get a diagnosis and everything was sort of relieved for a while. There was a surgery that was recommended to me that I could undergo. I think the success rate is quite high, but for me it wasn't. I was the smaller percentage of people that it didn't work for. And I underwent 2 surgeries at, I think, the age of 13 and 14. And sort of my mantra at this point in my life was like, I just want to be a normal teenager, which I never was. I never got the opportunity to live like everyone else did. I stopped doing PE and sports. Felt very isolated from my peers and people my age because of what was happening to my body. So I had 2 heart operations in my early teens and they both didn't work, unfortunately. I think the second one was within like 6 months of the first one, so I hadn't left it very long, but there was a whole emotional thing going on with it where my nan was dying of cancer at the time and she was refusing to have chemo. And in my mind, I thought, if I say to her, if you have chemo, I'll have heart surgery again. So I text her this text and she agreed to have chemo, which actually quickened the process of her death, unfortunately. But you just never know, I guess. But yeah, that's why I ended up having it so quickly, because I was just so keen to help her and then try and get rid of my condition so that I could help myself and be a normal teenager. But it never happened. So unfortunately, I just went years and years of having these symptoms in all situations. I had it on my 18th birthday, I had an episode. Just anything that was special, I'd always just have an episode. It was very heart-wrenching for me to experience that, because you couldn't tell when it was going to happen. It would just be like, you'd be sat here like now, like this, and then it would just start going crazy and it would go up to like 270 beats per minute. Basically, none of the surgeries worked, and the second to last surgery I had, the surgeon, who is like one of the best in England apparently, said that he was like this close from putting a pacemaker in, which is obviously like a battery heart, if you will, that has to be replaced every 5 years for the rest of your life. So it's a very like invasive, permanent solution to what I was dealing with. So when he said that about the pacemaker, he said he wasn't going to operate on me again until I was fully grown because of the risk that there was with the last surgery. So I had to wait, and that's where the addiction stuff came in, because I was just like, I hate life now. And I just stopped caring about my body at that point and just started doing drugs, which is obviously the opposite of what I needed. I had an episode on the first day working in central London when I was around 20 years old, and it just made me really sad because I thought I'd really made it at that point. Like, I'd moved out of my hometown, I was completely on my own, I just got out of a really weird relationship and I just really wanted to feel normal, but then it happened again. I tried to live in London for as long as I could, but it kept happening more and more. Days went on and it just kept coming back, and I thought to myself, is it time? Am I old enough now? Is my body fully grown? So I'd lived there for like 3 months maybe, max. I just had a change of heart. But I just knew in my heart, why is there so many heart references? I just knew in myself that it was time to go and get it done again for the 3rd time. 3rd time lucky. So I called my mum and I was like, shall I have heart surgery again? And She was like, you do what you need to do, you know, it's your choice. So I packed all my stuff and I left central London, where I live literally just off Oxford Street. It was vibes, okay, I loved it, but I knew I had to do what was right for me. So I came home and I booked a heart surgery with none other than a woman surgeon. And I just knew, looking in her eyes when she was talking to me, I knew that she was going to do it. I could just see it. I could see like how passionate she was about her job and how keen she was to help me. I was just like, this has been ruining my life for so long. I just want it to go away. And she was like, okay, let's do it. I went quite a few months not telling my mum that it was going to be a surgery that I'd have awake, because obviously that is crazy. Maybe 2 to 3 weeks before it was about to happen, one of the nurses said, you know you're going to be awake, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And Mum was like, what? And I was like, Mum, it's fine. And she was like, no, put her to sleep. I was like, no, because basically the adrenaline that you need in your body, if you're asleep like under full anesthetic, your heart doesn't work the same. It's not like, you know, pumping as much blood. So I needed to be fully conscious, fully aware of what was happening for it to most likely work. So I had agreed to it. And then on the 3rd of March 2020, I went in to Bristol Royal Infirmary on my own as an adult, which was so weird. And they were sort of like, Jessica? And I had to walk through on my own. It was very strange. Obviously, that was the day that they fucking broke through my blade. They broke through my vein. So I had bruising all up my arm before I had even gone into surgery. And I went in to this room that was like... It's so weird to explain. It was literally like this big metal room, and there was all these machines. It was like a huge, massive TV in the middle of the room, and then like this bed. I like had to take all my clothes off, and then this guy, who was super good looking, by the way, came up to me and was like, have you ever had a cup of coffee? And I was like, no, because I've got a heart condition, so I don't drink caffeine. And he was like, oh, well, this is going to be like having like 10,000 coffees. And I was like, okay. So he put this shot in my arm, which was pure adrenaline, and like put these big metal like belts around me, like Velcro things. And I was like all like strapped, and then walked over to this bed, and they started putting different like tubes in me so that they could like put the wires in and like see into my heart. Yeah, then we started doing it, and there was like a room of people, almost like a computer room of people on these computers. And I don't know what everyone's job role was, to be honest. I was just like in awe, in shock, and in fear of what was about to ensue. So I just went along with it. And I sort of lay there, and they were like, yeah, you know, some people feel really sedated from this drug, and some people are completely awake. Obviously, I was the completely awake one. So I was like, calling them gin and tonics. I was like, can I have another gin and tonic, please? And she was like, you've had enough, Jessica. We can't give you any more. So I was just sort of lying there whilst they were doing this operation. And then the woman surgeon was like almost like the director of the surgery. It wasn't almost like what you'd expect. She was like directing everyone what to do. And then there was a guy on the other side of the room who had like this big pedal, if you will. I didn't see the pedal, I've got to be honest, but it sounded like a pedal, or it sounded like a space bar of like a keyboard, you know, when you're like boom, 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 boom. So they were able to control my heart with these computers, and it was absolutely insane. They were able to sort of go like boom, 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 and like my heart was doing that. Like I could feel them mechanically doing it. It was the strangest sensation. I'll never forget it. And I sort of just had to lie there, and I was just sort of lying there. I was trying to think about all these different things. I was told I was allowed music in my ears, but I wasn't. They were like, sorry, we need you to sort of be able to hear us, which was different than what I was told beforehand, because I had like arranged this whole little playlist for me to listen to, but I was there and conscious and listening to what they were on about. And I was trying to see what the TV was saying as well. Like I thought that they were going to have like this 3D mapping of my heart, and I'd be able to sort of know what the heart was. I wanted to see in the tubes, do you know what I mean? But it wasn't like comprehensible to someone who doesn't know medicine. I had no idea what it meant. Like, there were so many different things on this big screen, and I sort of lay there for hours and let them sort of, they basically were able to mechanically control my heart and make my heart go into an episode without me having an episode naturally. So they were able to sort of go like da 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 da, and then they'd leave it, and then my heart would like catch on to the episode, if you know what I mean. It's very hard to explain. And it would happen, and then they would use like heat, so like burning, to burn through the nodes of my heart. It's very hard to explain. Maybe I'll have to explain it really fast. Basically, what was happening inside my heart was that the heart goes through the 4 chambers, right? And then when it goes around, if you have what I had, there's different nodes, and these are like electrical circuits, and it basically can catch on to different ones. It'll be like so it'll go, it's like irregular. So they were burning them away. As they were doing that, they'd make the heart go really fast, let it do it itself, so it'd like catch on to that like rhythm, and then they'd burn it, and I could feel them burning it. It was so painful. I did it for a few hours, and I was really, really strong. I was able just to like think, I really want this gone. I want to be a normal teenager. I want to live a normal life now. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. And it went on for a few hours, and then she looked at me, the heart surgeon, the main woman, the director of the whole thing, and she said, "Are you okay, Jessica? Do you want to keep going?" And I was like, yeah. And I didn't want to stop until she wanted to stop, because I wanted the most chance of getting rid of it. Like, I thought, this is just temporary. Like, this pain and this experience is just temporary, and I need it gone. Like, this has to be the last time. So she kept going, and then I was like sort of tearing up a bit towards the end, and I was sort of like, keep going, and they were doing the like spacebar really fast, and then they were burning, and it was like so painful, and I was just like lying there, and I was just like having to stay really still, obviously, and I just had like tears rolling down my face, and it was really hard. It was like so hard, but I wasn't afraid. The cat's gonna try and drink my drink now. I was over it at that point, you know? Like, I was over having a heart condition and having it ruin my life, and it just felt like a movie, if I'm honest. It honestly felt like a film. Like, I was so determined to get rid of it. It was just so weird. And then this woman came by me and was like dabbing my face with a piece of tissue. And yeah, I just lay there until they said that I'd done enough, and, you know, they wouldn't do it anymore. Yeah, I came out and sat there, and I didn't know whether it had worked or not, because obviously the other surgeries seemed like they worked until I'd have an episode afterwards, like a few weeks or months after. And it's been 3 years since I last felt that feeling, so I think it worked. It was 3 years ago today that I lay on that table and let them mechanically play with my heart, and I've never felt like it again, and hopefully I'll never experience it again. I guess that's probably quite a muddled story of how it went. I'm sure I've left a lot of bits of it out, but that is my heart story. So thank you for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this sad, happy, wonderful, crazy story of my journey with the organ that keeps me alive. I'm sure I'll do more videos and things about my heart, because it is, of course, my main personality trait. But yeah, thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have an amazing day, and if you ever think anything is wrong, go and get it checked, because you're probably not wrong. Not to scare you though, like, there might be nothing wrong, but keep yourself checked, because you know you best. And always listen to your heart.